Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. Great ending to your week, beginning to your weekend out there. Here to bring you the latest on what's going to happen weather-wise to kickstart your weekend for your Friday. Today will not be a whole lot different than yesterday. We will have a shot at some strong to severe storms for areas a little bit further east in the northern sections of the country, like the Dakotas. So we'll speak on that. I will speak on widespread showers and storms. It's ongoing right now across areas of the South, especially Texas and Louisiana, and how we'll have another day of widespread showers and storms across areas of the Southeast, especially the Eastern Carolinas. So we'll kind of zoom into those areas once we get to the Southeast timestamp and then the South Central timestamp. We'll speak about everybody else too. We'll talk about the Western U.S., the North Central, the Northeast, and get everybody covered here. So after we get done doing that, I got you a pretty big update on the tropics for the tail end of this video. We're going to discuss many things, many potential scenarios, go over all model guidance, because I do think there is some things we need to watch out there. Nothing to be concerned about whatsoever. But I do want to show you what we're seeing on model guidance, especially this morning, as there has been some changes with some of the other models. The European has been showing something. Some of the other models are starting to show a little bit of something also. So we're going to speak on that, break all that down for you folks. For you folks tuning in just for an update on the tropics, just jump right ahead to that timestamp. There'll be a timestamp for the tropics update where we'll break down all that information. If you're not worried about what's going to happen weather-wise for today, don't blame you. Just take advantage of those timestamps. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. So let's kickstart this by checking out what's going on across the country right now. We do have this front that's draped across a large section of the country with some ridging building across the middle of the country, and then another front with a trough in place, upper trough over areas of Western Canada. So there is multiple boundaries out here. Now, across areas of the Great Lakes region, it's calm, stable conditions. It's cool out there, a nice, cool summer morning. But you get south of this boundary and we have a lot of moist air and a lot of shower and storm activity that's ongoing not only right now, but will be ongoing, at least have a chance to be ongoing later this afternoon and this evening. Now, I do think for a lot of areas, today will be kind of your last day of just widespread rain. Tomorrow, conditions will improve for certain areas, and we will speak on that, especially as we get to the southeast timestamp. But we do have some energy kind of south of this front, kind of riding the boundary between the ridge and the front across the Rockies. But like I said, the north central U.S., the northeast is pretty quiet this morning. Nothing going on there. Just a lot of moisture across areas of the coastal regions of Texas, Louisiana, and then the Mississippi Delta region with a lot of activity off the coast of the Carolinas too. So we move and look at watches, warnings, and advisories. And nothing going on in Florida. Always going to kind of position this because my head's in the way for the southern sections of Florida. But everybody else, we do have some flood watches that are continuing across areas of the Eastern Carolinas. Not everybody in the Eastern Carolinas, but several counties. Flood watches are continuing across areas of Texas, one area of Louisiana. We even got some ongoing flash flood warnings. Flood watches are up for New Mexico. And then we do have some scattered heat advisories across areas of the northern plains, the Dakotas, Minnesota, South Dakota, Wyoming, even areas in Nebraska. But as you can tell, there's not as many widespread heat alerts. Speaking of excessive heat warnings, heat advisories, it's not as widespread this morning. We do have the red flag warnings, more of that hot pink color, more of the purplish color down here. That's excessive heat warnings where it continues to be pretty hot in Southern Cal. But all in all, alert-wise, it's not a very colorful map that we're looking at this morning, not very active. So as far as excessive rainfall, there's that area in the extreme eastern sections of the Carolinas we'll have to watch out for. And then this area here in southeast Texas. So in the yellow, that's at least a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles of any given location. If you're a new viewer, you don't know what the green means, that's a 5% chance of flash flooding. So there is a risk out there, not as widespread as what we've been seeing the last couple days, but certainly a risk out there. As far as severe weather, there's pockets of areas of the country we need to watch out for. One being down here in a very small section of New Mexico, southern Arizona, including, I would say southeast of Phoenix into the Tucson area. Watch out for some severe weather there. Salt Lake City into extreme northeastern and eastern sections of Nevada, northwestern areas of Utah, including, like I said, Salt Lake City, a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. Then you got this area right here across the high plains. And then this area up here and northeast North Dakota and then northwest Minnesota. And that is because we have this upper trough in place over Canada that's bringing enough mid-level flow to get some storms going in this area. These areas across the Rockies just more so driven off just energy, kind of embedded in the ridge, if you will. So as far as a tornado risk today, we do have to watch. There is a 2% risk of a tornado from Fargo to Grand Forks up to the Canadian, Minnesota, North Dakota border. So everybody else, just, some wind threats out here, 5% risk of some damaging winds, and then hail mainly for this northern one up here. So the southeast today, a broad look at things, and we'll zoom in to the Carolinas. I'm going to try to be better, guys, for my folks tuning in from Louisiana, to keeping you guys in the South Central timestamp. Hold me accountable. I know I got viewers from Louisiana. Hold me accountable for that. I really want to keep the southeast from like Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Florida, and maybe even including Virginia, even though most people would not consider Virginia in the southeast. But geographically, it looks better with that. But of course, we're going to mix up some states. Louisiana gets kind of mixed up. Kentucky sometimes gets mixed up between like 3 different areas. So, but anyways, southeast this morning, we do have the widespread rain across Louisiana and Texas. But just focusing in on the southeast here, widespread shower and storm activity across the Carolinas will develop as early as about lunchtime today. And as you can tell, look at all this activity. Some of these could pack a punch, even though it's just a general risk. We got thunderstorms, a thunderstorm risk all across Florida today, whether in your panhandle, whether you're in the peninsula of Florida. You could get some pop-ups in Georgia and Alabama. I don't think it'll be as widespread. You really got to work your way into southwestern Mississippi before you get widespread rain. But we are going to get that push of moisture because we are still south of this boundary that's probably sagging across the mid-south, mid-Mississippi Valley. Big push of moisture pushing up through areas of Louisiana, southern Mississippi. But look at all, it's going to be a rainy night. If you're heading to the beach today, it's going to be a pretty rainy, stormy night across the Carolina coastline. I know my boss is heading to the beach today, and he's going to be greeted by some storms. Kind of warned him of it. But we get into the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, kind of waking up to the same similar story. Some rain trying to grind all the way down the Texas coastline, into the Mississippi Delta region, western Tennessee. And we got to watch this energy off the coast of the Carolinas. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we give you guys an update on the tropics. We have to watch for a little hybrid coastal system right off the coast of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast for the end of the weekend into early next week. I will speak a little bit on that when we get to the update on the tropics. But a closer look at the Carolinas, where I do think we'll have the most widespread activity today. And here it is, guys. This is 1 p.m., so right after lunchtime. We're already getting storms that have the potential to fire from Columbia, maybe up the Rock Hill, Fayetteville, Raleigh, the eastern sections of North Carolina. And we'll get into this afternoon. I noticed I said North Carolina. I had somebody trolling me in the comments. I honestly thought it was funny. I didn't even get offended by it. It was several months back. I think it was back over the winter. And he would just put, where is North Carolina? And it's because I don't say North. A lot of times I'll say North Carolina. And I told my coworkers at work about that when it happened, and now it's just an overrunning joke at work. But I thought it was hilarious. I didn't even get offended by it. But just a little bit of the accent I have. I tend to slur my words a little bit. I think you guys probably know that, and most of you don't mind. But old North Carolina, eastern sections of the state, could get some widespread shower and storm activity. The PD of South Carolina, kind of the same deal. And this will have a little bit more flow to it today because their boundary is sagging in south. The Carolina coastline, a very stormy evening. Myrtle Beach, some local meteorologists there, Jamie and Andrew, I love them to death. They like to issue shelf cloud warnings or watches. And I think today will be one of those days where we could have one of those gnarly looking shelf clouds. You don't know what a shelf cloud is, just Google it and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But could get a pretty decent line of storms that works its way to the Carolina coastline, then works offshore And then we wake up tomorrow morning, and I honestly think it'll be a pretty calm start to Saturday morning. Rainfall between now and the next 24 hours, as you can tell, it's confined to the extreme eastern counties of the Carolinas. I mean, almost just specifically the Carolinas. We could get a lot of rain down in Savannah today too, Georgia. But, a few inches of rain could fall here. It's a pretty decent cutoff once you get north. But in general, I think the most widespread rain today and the flooding risk will be along the Carolina coastline. The Northeast today, it's a nice day. The temperatures are cool, like in PA. I mean, temperatures are in the 40s and 50s in certain areas. Same thing with New York State. Not everybody's seeing this nice air. You really got to get confined to the Great Lakes region. But it'll be a pretty nice day as a cold front has kind of sagged south, brought more stable conditions now. With another cold front advancing from the north down to the south, this could bring enough lift for a little bit of shower activity up in Maine. Very possible. Not going to alter any plans that you got planned out there. So it's a pretty nice Friday across the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, etc. Now, the South Central U.S., for a lot of areas, it's pretty nice. 2 areas to watch out for: widespread showers and storms across Colorado, New Mexico. Widespread shower and storm activity this afternoon to this evening across Louisiana, Southwest Mississippi, Eastern Texas. I think Texas, it seems like the trend in like the coastal regions of Texas it's been very rainy in the mornings into about midday, and then it kind of relaxes, and then it does it all over again late at night, and then you're waking up the next morning to a washout. So I think you'll do that again tomorrow morning, waking up to more widespread rain in the coastal sections of Texas. But just taking a closer look at South Texas this morning, dealing with the showers and storms. You'll continue to deal with it till early this afternoon, and then maybe some peaks of sunshine if you're vacationing along the Texas coastline. Might get a break. It's around 4 p.m. Then more storms fire up down here in Mexico, ooze their way north into southern sections of Texas, Brownsville. Up to maybe Corpus Christi. They might ooze up to Victoria by the time you get into about midnight tonight. And then you're doing it all over again tomorrow morning. And this time tomorrow morning, waking up to widespread shower and storm activity once again. So rainfall between now and you might as well bump this to about... Let's just go through about Sunday morning, honestly. This is rainfall between now and Sunday morning. A few inches of rain, once again, likely along the Texas coastline. Points inland. This could ooze a little bit inland, like Houston, Corpus Christi, Victoria, Brownsville. You guys could get rain too. So 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain along the Texas coastline and a few counties inland also. So you move up to Louisiana, I think it'll get pretty active later on today. Some widespread shower and storm activity for the same areas we've been mentioning. We've been highlighting Louisiana, Texas over pretty much the last week. And you'll have a big plume of moisture that pushes in once again. This can make it all the way to southwest Mississippi. So this is around 5 p.m. this afternoon. Widespread shower and storm activity across the Bayou of Louisiana, central Louisiana. Could make it all the way up into Arkansas. And then we get into tomorrow morning, and we're going to try to do it all over again. Rainfall between now and Sunday morning here too. Most of the rain in Texas, eastern Texas, but going for close to an inch in Shreveport potentially. And this is just the blend of all models. I like to show this sometimes over the National Weather Service forecast, because sometimes the area's maps do not connect and it looks kind of glitchy and weird. But southern sections of Louisiana, inch and a half of rain is possible anywhere. Now, some people only get a half an inch, so don't shoot the messenger here. Just saying widespread half inch to an inch and a half of rain is possible across southern Louisiana. So up here and the north central U.S., I'm going to show more people in Minnesota and Dakotas too. But once again, just want to show you guys the temperatures right now in the Great Lakes region. It's very nice, very comfortable. Not as cool as what we've seen the last couple mornings, but a nice cool air mass like north of the Great Lakes area. Even southern Ontario is enjoying a very comfortable air mass. Temperatures widespread in the 50s, maybe even some pockets in the upper 40s. Tucked into some of these areas, away from the Great Lakes, where you kind of have that warm water influencing the actual air temperature. You could be dipping into the 40s. We're getting some mid 40s in certain areas. So a very nice air mass greeting you guys across areas of the Midwest. But there is a pretty sharp cutoff between temperatures. I mean, like Des Moines, you're waking up about 70 degrees, but you head on over to your friends in Wisconsin, it's in the 50s. So definitely a boundary in place for sure. And that's that cold front oozing south from and heading towards the southeastern U.S. Now, we're not going to get into the 50s in the southeast. This air mass is not going to make it that far south, but it will bring some slightly cooler temperatures and stuff like that. So the north central U.S., it's quiet this morning. One thing we will watch for, if you live in the Dakotas, especially, I would say western South Dakota and then northeastern North Dakota, this is getting into this afternoon to this evening. We're going to get some storms here. Like, look at this one storm firing up here. It's around 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. If you live up here, tuning in here from northeast Minnesota, northwest Minnesota, northeast North Dakota, you could get some storms capable of producing a quick spin up with a little bit of energy kind of working its way along the boundaries out here. Definitely some shower and storm activity across the Dakotas, but not everybody will see it. Most people won't. But, we get into the overnight hours, some storms continue to kind of trail along this area in eastern North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota, and then this heads into Canada. So just watch out for some storms. I would say, I'm going to circle an area, I would say in this area right into here. There's going to be a corridor you want to watch out for. Definitely some strong to severe storms. Not everybody will see it, but the people who do, they could pack a heck of a punch. So moving into the western U.S., similar pattern. Karen told us that 2 days ago she got about a 1/4 inch of rain. So that's nice to hear. I saw some video out of Canada where the wildfire just pretty much wiped out. I want to say, I don't want to say and get it wrong, but I don't want to offend anybody, but it was a town in Canada just got completely just wiped out by a wildfire. It was honestly hard to watch. But yeah, so I've seen some wild footage. It seems like we deal with this at least a time period a year, and it seems like we're dealing with it right now. But we're going to get widespread shower and storm activity across the central Rockies, I would say, is the general geographical theme out here. And it's going to be pretty widespread across southeast Wyoming, extreme western Nebraska. Watch out the Black Hills region of South Dakota. Widespread shower and storm activity across the Front Range of Colorado. Storm activity down to Albuquerque. We do have flood watches up in New Mexico. So just be aware of that. And then when you wake up tomorrow morning, maybe a little energy cruising across the central to northern Rockies. But rainfall between now and the next 24 hours. There's that slither of 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of rain from southwestern South Dakota all the way through areas of Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, all the way to southeastern Arizona. So little pockets here and there, a little bit further west and north, but all in all, Utah, Montana, Idaho, Nevada do not look like they're going to get a whole lot of rain from this today. So temperatures comfortable in the Great Lakes region, 80s in general, 60s, 70s, and 80s across the Northeast, depending on your elevation and how far north you are. Southeast, 70s and 80s, pockets of low 90s. Cloud cover might keep you in the 70s, but it'll be a very humid 70s. Moving a little bit further west, temperatures across the middle of the country, pretty hot, but not unbearably hot. It might be a little bit of a different story in South Dakota where temperatures could actually rise to about the low 100s. It's pretty wild. If you kind of look at a better view of this, I'm actually going to draw on this a little bit, show you in pink. No, it's probably not the best color for it. Let's just go yellow. There's like a boundary right into here, and then there's a ridge building up right into here, and then there's that cold front that kind of goes like that. So the ridge is spiking into here, and you can see in response to these higher surface temperatures right into here, cooler air right into here, cooler air over here, spike in the ridge right into here, and you got just that very hot temperatures across the plains because a ridge has built across the central plains. So that's what's going on. That's why it's so hot today in the Dakotas, Nebraska. Why it's hotter in South Dakota than it is, for example, in like Arkansas today. But cooler temperatures. It's actually a chilly morning across areas of the northern Rockies, especially the further west you get in the northern Rockies. And the Pacific Northwest because of a cold front that's moved in place. And you can see that cold front actually right into here. You see it right here, and that's what I'm talking about, the spike in the ridge, boundary into here, spike in the ridge. Everybody south of this boundary probably of dealing with above average temperatures. So we'll mention there is a threat of severe weather coming up for the plains, the high plains tomorrow. There is a slight risk. We haven't had a slight risk in a few days or several days. I'm not even sure, but level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. There's a tornado threat, 2% risk. The wind threat, a 15% risk. And then the hail threat's a 15% risk. We'll have to watch this threat for tomorrow as energy kind of rounds the base of this upper trough up in Canada. And then we will watch Sunday too. This could upgrade to a slight risk, a pretty large marginal risk across the high plains and areas of the Midwest. So this is for Sunday. So, all right, let's get down to the tropics. So we'll spend some time on this. First off, I'll show you no tropical cyclone activity is expected over the next 7 days. So there's nothing that the National Hurricane Center has highlighted as far as an area of interest or anything like that. So I always want to start off with the experts here. Now, I want to first mention, and I'm not going to hang on this for too long, the energy that moves off the coast of the Carolinas tonight will have an opportunity to consolidate and then kind of move north across the northern sections of the Atlantic, kind of south of Nova Scotia off the coast of the Northeast. So this is the 850 Vort max. So this shows energy in the low levels of the atmosphere, and we're going to show you more of this here in a second when we talk about the tropical Atlantic. So watch what happens off the coast of North Carolina. You see these highlighted colors in like yellows, orange, and reds. That is energy coming off the coast with this boundary that kind of almost brings a complex of storms. And these storms actually will try to get going over the warm waters of the Atlantic, the Gulf Stream off the coast of the Atlantic. And check it out. You see the wind barbs kind of circling around this consolidating area of energy in the low levels. And then watch what happens. This kind of gets slung north, if you will, and we have this area of energy. Now, this might look alarming on the 850 Vort map here, but it's not. I don't think this is going to be a serious system. I don't want to freak anybody out here in New England or Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, thinking that this is a massive coastal storm coming. Now, something could uptrend a little bit more higher in, but it actually weakens as we get into Sunday night, Monday. But you see this little area of energy kind of gets pushed into the down east areas of Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. It's just something we need to watch. I don't think it's a huge deal whatsoever, guys. And if you look at the actual precipitation map, it does pop off that little L, low pressure tonight. And there it is. There's that little push of moisture. And then we get into Monday morning and it like fizzles out. So it doesn't really do a whole lot of anything. But I think it'll be an interesting feature to watch this weekend. It will. But I just want to kind of throw that a bone. Now, let's talk about, I wouldn't say what is the main story, but something that people are chattering about out there in the weather community. And that is the potential for some activity that could develop sometime over the next several days, next week. So we'll start off by looking at what's going on out here in the Eastern Atlantic, way out there in what we call the MDR, Main Development Region, the Tropical Atlantic. This is what we call the monsoon trough. This is where a lot of energy likes to hang out down here in the Atlantic. So what happens here is we get these tropical waves that come off the western coast of Africa from North Africa, and then they get over the warm waters of the Atlantic and have a chance to develop. Most do not, but some of them do, as we know. Every year, one or two do, sometimes more. Right now, you're probably hearing a lot of chatter. If you're somewhat active in the weather community, there's a lot of Saharan dust dominating the Atlantic basin, which is keeping things pretty dry, pretty stable. But you see these areas of energy. There's a big tropical wave over areas of Africa right now that eventually will move over the Atlantic. But you see this area of energy here, heck, even this one right here, this one right here. This is just little pockets of, like I said, energy. They probably have their own little elongated, somewhat of a spin out there. They will try to get their act together, but they are struggling because of all that dry air on top. But I'm showing you this because this is real time what's happening right now across the Eastern and Central Atlantic. And we watch to see if one of these areas of energy over the next several days can become a dominant piece of energy and the models latch onto it, then all of a sudden we have a trackable system. So this is what's going on right now. Now, I do want to show you the Atlantic basin and show you that dry air, and I'm actually going to pause this right here, okay? If you're wondering why it's black, gray over here, and this beautiful blue right here, that is the sun coming up, which it has pretty much on the over the entire Atlantic basin, except maybe the Gulf of Mexico and areas of the Western Caribbean. But I keep showing you this, and there's a reason I keep showing you this. And, if you're wondering what the blue is, that's the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. But if you look really closely here, I mean, this is Africa over here. This is the Gulf of Mexico. This is the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, Southwest Atlantic. You see, if you look really closely, you see this kind of almost tan color, kind of, I'll kind of do an outline of it, kind of, and then it kind of goes like that, and it's like this. You see this kind of these areas right into here where it looks kind of tannish. That is Saharan dust working its way off the west coast of Africa from the Saharan desert. And this Saharan dust is able to dominate the Atlantic basin because we're not in a favorable, what we call MJO phase, a very sinking air phase. So this pretty much dust is just able to really dry out what we call the monsoon trough, which is located right here in this region. If you can see the wider colors here, this indicates moisture, this indicates clouds, where you do have that shower and storm activity. So it does look like, even though energy is having a very hard time kind of consolidating and getting going because of all the dry air on top that I just outlined, it does look like our monsoon trough is starting to try to get somewhat more active. But just because it's active, that don't mean we're going to have a hurricane to track. But you can see, you're getting all this energy kind of out here. Is anything going to become a dominant feature out there in the Atlantic? So now that we looked at real time, what's going on right now, let's go back. And some of this is going to bore people. You're going to be like, Mitch, just show me if there's going to be a hurricane. But this is very important. We're going to talk about the short to medium term first. We're going to go over the European, the GFS, and the ICON model. So once again, we're looking at 850 millibar vorts. So areas of energy about a mile up in the air. We look for some kind of dominant spin. Okay? And we start off tomorrow morning. The European saying, hey, it likes this little area right here, this little area maybe right here, and this little area right in here. So does the European try to latch on to one of these? So, like I said, starting off tomorrow morning, July 27th. We keep this going. We get into Sunday. Not a whole lot's changed. We get into Monday. Not a whole lot's changed. We got that next tropical wave trying to move off the coast of Africa into the eastern Atlantic that I kind of showed you just a second ago that's still over North Africa. But watch what kind of this area does here as we continue. We get into next Tuesday. We get into next Wednesday morning. And you want to watch this feature here. I know this just looks like a blob of yellowish orange, but that is a wave you want to watch because I want to mention, if any wave can survive across the hostile conditions of the Atlantic and makes it into the Southwest Atlantic, the Caribbean, the steering current is going to push it in that direction, one, and I'll show you that here in a second. Two, we expect this to meet a somewhat more favorable MJO phase of rising air, and we do expect this to enter most likely an area of conditions in the upper levels of the atmosphere, the wind pattern wise, for whatever can make it there to develop, to really have a shot at developing. So I don't expect any hurricane to develop in the tropical Atlantic, any tropical storm to develop. What I watch for over the next, I would say 4 to 5 days, is if anything can survive out here and get into the Caribbean, into the Southwest Atlantic, etc. So we look at the GFS, which if you've been tuning in, you know that the GFS has been stubborn. I mean, and let's hope it's right in being stubborn, and has not really been latching on to anything. Well, we already started off tomorrow morning. It's already verifying a little bit more aggressive. You see these little pockets of energy, which I say aggressive. This is just normal tropical wave energy. It's nothing unusual at all. But you continue to move this forward. You get into next Monday, 29th. How much? A little energy here. Not even enough to really move these wind barbs at all. Let's move this a little bit further like this. And then we kind of keep this going. We get into next Tuesday, and then we get into next Wednesday. The only thing I'm seeing is this little energy right here, but it's really not much of anything. But one thing I do want to mention is this energy tries to get into like the Caribbean, and then it looks like it's trying to do something as we get about 6.5 days away as it gets over like the Greater Antilles. We'll kind of show you a closer look at the Caribbean and stuff here in a second. Just kind of want to show you the short to medium term. And then we look at the icon, which I respect a little bit more for what it did with Beryl. It was one of the first ones to really show that northerly trend. So I think it's worth showing. The icon, we can only look at 500 millibars. So this is energy like 18,000 feet up in the air. So it's not going to be as highlighted. But it does show as we get into this Sunday, it shows this area of energy right in here. And it just does show in general energy right into here. It's just very mute. It's not a very loud signal at all. And this only goes out. In fact, we can probably switch this to OOZ and see what it shows. This goes to Wednesday morning. This goes into Thursday morning. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't show a whole lot. It does actually latch on to something about a week out here in the central Atlantic. But yeah, so now, bored you with that enough. Now we're going to show it again, but we're going to show it a little bit closer to home. And I want to show you the European, which continues to like the idea of something happening. So we switch guns here and we look a little bit closer to home. The Caribbean, Southwest Atlantic, and then the Gulf of Mexico. Anytime I say the Southwest Atlantic, guys, I'm talking about this area right in here. Okay? Just want to let you guys know if geographically you don't know what I'm talking about here. But Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, there's that wave. Wednesday morning, last day of July, that's our wave. It doesn't look like much, and it really ain't, but it survived. The kind of the energy has survived, right? Now, it looks like it's moving over the next 2 days after until we get into the morning at the 2nd. Looks like it's moving right over the Greater Antilles, areas of maybe the Bahamas. But if we keep going even further, past 1 week from today, this energy does sneak into the Gulf of Mexico, which we don't want anything to get into the Gulf of Mexico, and then tries to develop. I mean, and then just gradually strengthens, and then it looks like it's about to make landfall along the Gulf coastline. Now, I know this looks alarming, but if you switch this and look at the actual millibar number of what this is, it's really not. It's only a 1,004 millibar low pressure, which would symbolize maybe a weak tropical storm. But in general, we just got to watch. Okay, and if we look at the latest GFS run, which is fully ran, what does it do with the energy? Okay, here it comes. It's there. There's some energy right in here. You can barely see it, but it starts to try to get it together. Same thing as the Euro now. And I know this isn't a very aggressive run by the GFS, but it's starting to pick up on something like the Euro is now. Has some energy, cruises over areas of just the Caribbean, let's just say, gets into the Gulf of Mexico, and then tries to do something with it, but really never fully gets going. So it's just something we got to watch. It really is. I don't think this is anything to be concerned about, but I do think it's worth continuing to monitor for sure. One thing we know, almost for certain, I would say, is that anything that does develop because it will stay weak will most certainly go east to west. The main dominant reason because of this is because of this Atlantic high over the North Atlantic. You see this dark burgundy color? That is a ridge of high pressure. Flow around this is going to go just like that. So anything that develops maybe down here, I wouldn't expect it to develop right here, or maybe a little bit further up here, okay, is going to work its way this way. It's definitely not going to turn and go right into this ridge. The only way it would try to fight to gain latitude is if you got an all-out hurricane like right into here or just in this general area. Then it's going to try to force itself to go further north. But because this is going to stay so weak at whatever it does form, it's only going to be influenced by those kind of lower level steering currents, and just a weaker system is more likely going to go a little bit more zonal unless there's just a wide open weakness in the pattern. So whatever does form down here, if anything does, and then eventually might get stronger right into here, is most likely going to hit somebody. It's just, does anything actually even form? I don't know. So if we look at the European ensemble, all right, the signal is probably the loudest it's been so far. I'm not going to try to count all these members. Remember the EPS, the European ensemble, makes up 51 runs, and then in this particular model output, throws them all on the screen for you. There is different versions of this where it kind of creates one solid low pressure, and it averages out all the members and kind of creates where it is on the map based off kind of the average of all the geographical locations that all the other low pressures are. I don't want to kind of confuse y'all to death. But anyways, out of the 51 members, there's many members on here. and some of them go a little bit. You can notice that some of the stronger ones that you see kind of sub 1,000 millibar kind of start to turn. Weaker ones, more so kind of further west. Okay, so you see that, right? But then you can compare it to the OOZ GFS ensemble, which makes up 21 members, by the way. One lonesome member. That's it. Okay. Now, the latest GEFS ensemble is running. And I don't know if it's, yeah, I mean, it only goes 144 hours out. But I mean, it's still very, very low signal. So the GFS is still not showing much. So that's all I got, guys. I know I keep saying it, but I will have you just an kind of, an isolated, I guess you would say, I always get my words twisted up, video on just nothing but the tropics, probably this weekend. And I'm starting to think it's probably going to be Sunday evening, as my little girl has a sleepover tomorrow night, and I won't be able to do it tonight. So Sunday evening, stay tuned for that. But I mean, I'm basically going to re-go over everything like that I've been going over in the back half of these morning videos. Just going to make a video where we just focus and spend some time on the tropics. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful Friday.